The first step is to create a project and test suite, and they act as the top level containers for our various artifacts, first of which is a test component or task. So just give it a name. Choose the type of application, in this case Remedy. Then we can commence the recording process. The way we capture activity is by importing log files of user activity. So before we commence the activity that we want to capture, we should switch on logging. To do that, we set an environment variable that when a AR client-side application is instantiated, it will generate the required log files. So I'm just pop into environment variables and set the value of the AR API logging variable from 0 to 3, and that will switch on logging of any activity that our Remedy client application makes. So let's just start up the application, log into the server. And we just go through one of the sample applications and make some standard transaction in there. Let's search for tickets. And if we'll search on the status, so we'll look for new tickets. And that will return a set of values, just a single one there. So that's enough. So let's just close that down, close down the client application, and that obviously will contain all the information in the log of the activity that we've undertaken. So back in the Scapa capture, we'll just browse to where those logs are stored by default. You can see both logs have been generated, and we've got some kind of server login parameters there as well. So Scapa goes through and parameterizes, it analyzes and parameterizes the logs. It will essentially take the list of API commands and turn them into something that's replayable at load. And also we've got some parameterization variables that can be set as well. The next stage is to generate alternatives for the path that we've gone down. So Scapa, again, based on the initial kind of single user log and the server connection information, it will go back to the system and interrogate the Remedy backend, looking for suitable variations on the data that we chose. So, for instance, we chose new to search for tickets with only the new status, but this will go back and presumably find tickets with in process and completed and rejected statuses as well. So Scapa's gone through that process completely automatically. It generates all the data variants itself. So now we just add a test scenario, and we then include one or more of our test components in that scenario. We just have a single test component here. So let's just add it in. And we'll just set the population to something greater than 1. Save that, and then we can start running this test at load. So we create a statcon, or statistical console file, where the various test metrics and so on will be displayed. We can start the test either interactively, as we're going to do here, or via control sequence, which is a macro of predefined test events for non-interactive running. In this case, we'll control the test interactively. So once the virtual users have been initialized, we can OK that and begin controlling the test. A number of variables that we can set. We've got the user count. Just move that from 0 to 1, and just clean up the screen a little bit. So you just see actually that we've got a result already. We've got two black lines there in that third column. They're mirrored over on the in the graphical area. The upper of the two black lines is the response time, and the lower of the two black lines is the portion of that response time that's think time or wait time. As you can see, that's completely controllable during a test, as is the user count. Now we've just increased the user count there from from 1 to 2. The green line at the same time is displaying throughput. We could also drive by throughput, so we could say give me 10 tasks per second, that kind of thing, if we so desired. So the typical behavior in an interactive test like this is that we will increase the user count all the time, observing metrics such as response time and throughput. That's all well and good, but we can also pull in how the rest of, not just the client performance, but also how the rest of the architecture is performing. So in this case, we're just going to add in the metrics from the server that we are stressing, the application server and database server being one and the same in this example, Windows-based server. So it just takes a moment for those to populate, and we can see there that we've got a complete perfmon stack there, and we can basically dive into any of those top level counters, in this case processor, memory, just again. So by double clicking there on any of the metrics, so let's say percentage committed bytes, and let's look at the processor use as well. And that's added the memory and the processor utilization as the light blue and the light purple metrics there, and we can just, if we rescale that second vertical to 100, we can see that indeed we're using a hefty amount of processor, but we've just dropped the user count back down, and you can see there already that the processor use has returned to just slightly above 0. We can add alerts over any of the metrics, so we'll just add an alert over response time in this case. So if that goes over 3 seconds, take some action, and we'll just add an action. A number of different things: email, log to a file, do nothing, start up another Scapa test. Let's just log to a file in this case. Increase the user count back up, that should start seeing some more activity there. So already you can see the jump in processor use, the little purple line. So we can change the value that users are introduced to the test at. So we've just changed the ramping value there to 10. So if we now increase the users from 1 to 5, they'll be introduced at 10-second intervals, as opposed to them all coming on stream at once. Or the processor use there is spiking to 100 already. And we can see that the response time, client-side response time, the black line is increasing as well. So one more feature to note is that the generation of reports with the tool is very, very easy indeed. We're doing this interactively, adding start and finish pairs around segments that we wish to monitor, report on. But of course it's possible to do that automatically as well. Just generate a report out, in this case into PDF. Give it a name. And then the report content tab allows us to, we can add in titles and so on, but the report content tab allows us to specify what type of content we'd like to see, and we can increase the granularity of the segments that are being reported on. Add in raw response times into one of the tables in the report if that is of interest. That'll go away and generate that report for us. You can see it generating there at the bottom right of the screen. just in our test just before we leave it, the processor there is kind of flattening at 100%, and we're seeing a very sharp, a relatively sharp increase in response times as well as we increase the user count. So let's just stop that test. I think we're at the end of it. The report now that we generated, this is the kind of standard PDF. You can see we've got a initialization count there, the average initialization time, and then in the statistical table we've got sets of the metrics that we had displayed on the screen at that time. So you can see there, one user, the processor was that, and throughput was that, and then generates a fairly simple graph down the bottom just based on the number of segments that were included in the report. So that's it. Thanks for your time.